My name is Kevin Doyle, and I've been invited to Heliosphere by another Kevin, and I'm here to discuss social media. I'm a researcher at Dublin City University School of Communications, where I'm looking at the role of social media in authoritarian societies, specifically Cambodia and Myanmar.
Hi Kevin.
Hi Kevin.
Welcome to the Heliosphere.
Thank you, great to be here.
It's lovely having you here. Tell us a little bit about your background in social media. Maybe if you want to, in the context of your research, but then also a little bit in the context of how you maybe use it personally and how it maybe influences your life.
Yeah,
in a way.
Well, I suppose I was a real skeptic about social media because I came out of a journalism background, specifically print. So social media, online technology really kind of undercut journalism. So we're very skeptical about journalism. About social media when it started first. But then just critical mass, you had to really be on social media. So I dived in. So particularly I use Twitter. I don't use Facebook. I don't really use anything else. I use it in a professional capacity to keep up to date with other people who are following the region I study, which is Southeast Asia. So I use it to keep informed, share news, and then express my opinions on specific topics. All very professional. I don't share any family or personal details on Twitter. Rarely. Maybe on a Sunday afternoon. That'd be it.
Okay. We'll come back to that on the personal capacity, which I'm interested in. But with the data and specifically your research, Southeast Asia that you mentioned, I'm always curious when there's certain events that happen, such as like in Sri Lanka, the terrible bombing, and the government decided to shut down social media. And that is something that is often discussed even in any in any context, is are we better off as a society if we just shut it down? And it's interesting to see what's happening in Sri Lanka, is if the shutdown is actually helping or not. So I don't know, is there any idea, not specifically for Sri Lanka, but generally, would you think that is social media better for us as society, or maybe parts of it be better if we don't have it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. That's what I'm looking at in my own research, is the role of social media in the democratic process in Cambodia, how influential it actually is. I actually think, in the countries I study, Cambodia, I think its role has been overblown. It's been considered as too influential. It's been seen as more influential than, say, social relations or family relations. There's this idea that somehow technology is almost determining of the actions we take in life. And I just think that's not what I'm seeing in my data. People are much more complex and make decisions based on many other variables, not just what they read on social media, what they see on Facebook. That is influential, but it's only one thing in their lives. They talk to their friends, they talk to their family, they've got teachers, they've got peers, they've got people they love. And their opinions are much more influential, what I'm finding, than anything they see on social media. The idea that social media almost has a determining effect on society at times of crisis, I think we're mixing up things here. There's this idea that the platform owner has not done enough at times of crisis, and then when there's a crisis, the reaction is to shut it down, do more, not enough. These two things are both necessary, but I think misplaced as to where the actual issues and problems actually are. And again, seeing social media as almost too influential.
It's on that note, and again, I'm just curious because your work is in that background. On the topic of censorship, that's a huge topic at the moment, and it's the first time, I guess, that we see this, that private, it's known as private censorship, where suddenly the social media platforms are basically tasked with deciding, and often it's like on a second basis because there's so much content, if this content is harmful or not. And it's questionable, what is this based on? And the people that have to make the decisions, that are employed to make those decisions on like split seconds, who's actually looking at where they're from and what their point of views are. So what do you think the thing is it's a bit messy, or?
Absolutely. It's like the horse is bolted and they close the stable gate. This is exactly what happened in Myanmar. I was there in February when Facebook decided to shut down the Facebook accounts of several of the ethnic minority rebel groups. And I was with students in Yangon who are majority Burman, who have absolutely no relationship with these groups. And these groups are fighting against the central government. And even the students were saying, why did they shut down those Facebook accounts? I mean, it makes no difference. I mean, that they're not advocating violence. They have their views, their own political stance. But this isn't what the problem is in Myanmar. And even the Burmese students were saying themselves, it's ridiculous. Is now, social media, Facebook, the arbiter of thought, and what can't be read and what can be read in Myanmar. And of course the problem was what had happened with Rohingya and hate speech generally, which was completely separate. It already occurred and they hadn't done anything then. So they're overcompensating. A year later with these groups that even the Burmese people in the middle said, but why did they bother shutting that down? They're not advocating, hate. They have a political stance and political cause. It may be an armed struggle, but they're not advocating. Random acts of hatred against.
So it's interesting because it's often viewed as that social media has a lot of influence and it might not have that much influence as we think. I mean, it's still a widespread. Like we still have a lot of media variety, and
absolutely,
and it's
part of the media ecology, the media terrain in every society. It's there. It does have an influence, like newspapers have an influence, like radio has an influence, like you talking to your friend on a mobile phone has an influence. But I think we're into this kind of tailspin about media effects, and this is the latest media technology. That is, each new technology brings fears and hopes. And this is the latest one. In the 1980s, the great fear that I remembered was VHS video recorders in the home. Because people were afraid you'd watch video nasties at home. These violent video movies. Chucky, the doll, the violent doll. I mean, that was banned. In the 1980s. And it was front page news and tabloid newspapers about how dangerous Chucky was and how dangerous VHS video was to have in your home. And here we are now. It's the latest media that's imperiling society.
And just on a more personal note, you mentioned that you use social media quite rare. Is there a certain reason? Is that because of your professional capacity, like that your research is in the space and you know about it, or is it just because you don't see any use for it? Or?
No, I suppose in a personal, I use social media professionally. I only deal with professional matters. I don't use it personally. So the kind of social is a bit odd for me.
The word social in social media.
I prefer it to be more professional media in a way. But I don't use it, to share personal details. I use it as a professional tool.
Would you see ways to enhance social media platforms to shift more to the social and away from the media? Like, would there be space for that?
I mean, this economic model of social media undermines everything. It can never, once it's a capitalist technology and it's designed to generate great profits for private firms, it can never be truly social because its decisions will always be based on profit factors. So if that means not hiring enough moderators in Myanmar, to check hate speech, they won't hire them because they want to keep profits up. If you don't worry about your profits and concerned about quality and making it truly social media, you'll make sure that these things are tested and don't cause harm before you release them into the public. And then the problem is, for me, it's this economic model straight off.
So a shareholder value, a capitalistic system,
absolutely
fueling private companies, basically.
So
could we imagine maybe like if we take Linux, I don't know if you know the history of Linux, like there's operating systems that were built on the so-called open source model, where developers build an open source platform such as Linux, and then it's free, basically, and things can be built on it. The web is a nice example. So the web that we know, Tim Berners-Lee created that as an open standard. So everybody has their own web server and all the documents linked. There's no commercial model behind it. It's now become a platform for commercial models, but the basis. So maybe we can imagine something like an open, like an operating system for social media or something like that. So
absolutely. I mean, I think it's better people communicate with each other than they don't. I definitely think it has to be community standards. It can't be just a huge rabble-rousing fist fight among hatred. I mean, it has to be moderated properly. There has to be standards of behaviour like there is in society. We abide by social contracts. We all live together. Social media should be the same. The idea was just let loose, and then it hasn't been, properly, tested or moderated, or even its values have never been clearly stated. What is it? Social media.
Yeah, true. Yeah, good question. What is it? And where do you, on that note, where do you see it going? Like if we obviously there's two paths. One is maybe a more positive future of social media or its impact on society, and then obviously there's a more critical view. So we start with the critical one. It's maybe easier and more obvious. Like what do you think is, like, if we go 10 years ahead with the speed, acceleration, and how things are working, like what place would social media have in society?
Well, I think what you're having now is governments responding very strongly to social media, and they want to bring government regulation. And of course, once you let governments regulate media, governments do that to their own political ends. So you can't really trust governments to be, the arbiter of these sorts of things. That's a danger. There has to be groups that are impartial, that we can trust to set those standards, those community standards in these environments. I don't think it should be left to governments, just, because they're based on political parties, political objectives, ideologies. That's a danger. I think if the current private for-profit capitalist model continues, the government will regulate in that way. I definitely think there has to be a kind of a community ownership in some way, where it's put back into the hands of individuals who can then make decisions and make them
So more control to the users themselves.
Absolutely.
And their behaviour.
Well, we have to get our data back, For one, that's just simple.
Well, that conflicts with the commercial model.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I'm totally against the commercial model.
Yeah. So what's the alternative then?
Something that's user-owned,
Yeah, like a co-op.
Co-op. Has anyone ever asked me, would I pay to use social media?
Would you pay?
Yes, I would pay. Yeah.
What would you pay? What would you pay?
It would depend. A reasonable price. No, really. If it was moderate and I knew it was adding value to the entire ecosystem of it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What would it be? $10 a month or something?
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
We already pay for extra storage on Google because we need it. These small micropayments are not beyond that. Of course, and even those who can afford to pay contribute. Those who can't, because this is a first world, developing world issue as well. So if those who can contribute more, those who can't, it can be waived. I think there's a lot of goodwill for this sort of thing. We don't see the better angels of our nature as humans, that we actually want things to improve, and if we have to spend money on it or put time into it, we'll do it.
If we get value from it.
Yeah. Because
so what
if we feel it reflects us and we own it.
Yeah. So beyond ownership, like if we think of like valuable properties on a more positive note, valuable properties of social media for you would be obviously ownership of data. What other aspects be? Like,
I think it has to have an altruistic spirit to it as well. It's not about mining our data. It's not about manipulation. It's actually trying to be a broader conversation. An inclusive, a real sense of community where we can actually learn from it. Be educated, entertained, and be safe in doing that. It kind of brings some sort of understanding among people as well. And that may require, again, community standards. It may require moderation. It definitely needs a vision, and it needs leadership. To people, who can express this kind of idealism around, the idea of.
Do you feel that would be lacking, like that the leaders of social media platforms are not leading?
Are we talking about Mark Zuckerberg here? Perfect example.
There's loads of them.
We don't need to say anything more.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Interesting. And aspects such as, back to the social in social media. What do you think? How can technology actually help those social interactions to become better?
Again, this is more your computer science design of platforms, not really mine.
I'm not even thinking of.
I'm just thinking about the content. That the quality of conversations enhanced. That that real issues are debated, and it can lead to an idea that the public sphere is idealistic. It's we all have our different interests, probably not even practical in some ways, but it's an ideal to aim towards. So I think all this is achievable. No idea. I do believe in the human spirit, though, and the ability of people to overcome themselves and actually aspire to something better. And I think we have to try to aspire to something better, to actually believe it is possible than to just to give in to cynicism.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's much easier to give in to cynicism.
Yeah, I guess I'm really curious, and I'm not expecting you to answer that at all. I'm just as an exploration, what the something better is. So that's obviously, often we don't know what that is. So social media, I would say, is like this massive social experiment, this thing that just keeps moving, and we're all trying to kind of, like, it's interesting that you said there's a lack of leadership, because it seems like the technology is leading us. It's like almost as if we're like constantly patching and fixing whatever this self-perpetuating thing keeps coming up with, and that we haven't ever encountered in potentially history of mankind. So it's interesting, how can we get back on the steering wheel?
And maybe it's something to do with the nature of it as well, where computer scientists designed and developed and created, and in fact sociologists now are critiquing it, the ethnographers who are looking at it.
Yes.
And my own research is ethnographic into social media. I'm not using big data. I don't think it explains what's taking place. It cannot explain what's taking place. You have to talk to people about the value of social media for them, how they use it, how they see it being used. You know? Not
which we're doing here.
Not who's clicking like, who's sharing what. Valuable to some people, but not to me. I really want to understand, you know, the kind of the social process behind social media.
Yeah. That's a fascinating topic. Like, that's very hard for me, like from all angles, to fully understand, because it's just this. It's like this. I mean, if we look at Facebook or the Facebook universe, let's say 2.7 billion users, and it's almost never offline, so it just keeps moving, it keeps doing its thing. We're feeding it with data. It makes decisions. Suddenly we have things like hate speech, which you're researching. We have meddling of a democratic process. We have things that we didn't imagine when it was designed, and who knows what will pop up next? Good things, bad things, who knows? But it's, from a sociological perspective, it's really fascinating, because it's just this big experiment in humanity that we have no idea of. Fundamentally no idea how it's going to work.
And I think it's dangerous when corporations are in charge of it. You know?
True.
And focused on a profit motive. You know? So how to start it, to reconfigure this, maybe redirect it. You know, it's definitely it's economic model.
Yeah, obviously. I always feel it's healthier to fix something by being part of it, and not like to say, okay, we just have to shut it down and do it again. I mean, that would be like the exit it model. I don't think you can. For me, it's a very democratic process. Social media and the design of social media is becoming more democratic in a way. There's more and more stakeholders coming in and saying how it should be shaped and formed into the future. That makes it so fascinating, because of the friction, which creates new innovation. It's lots of.
Can you see any way this can be done?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like putting the human back in place of the algorithm. Is it possible at scale?
That's. I guess that's the challenge, because when you said moderation, in my mind immediately I was like, okay, we have 2.7 billion users, increasing. I mean, with the population of the planet, and a lot of posts, a lot of content going through the system. How moderating that is a big task. So it needs some assistance of help of the machine. So I don't know where it goes. I just hope it doesn't fall back into such like a television format, where it's completely more or less state controlled, the content and everything. Some kind of hybrid, obviously, but it has to be valuable for society. But we still have to figure out how that works. And at the same time, it has to be paid. It has to be commercial. So there's no answer for that yet. But
there's plenty of money being generated in social media. There's no lack of it. Otherwise, Facebook wouldn't be as big as it is. And Google and all these other digital, empires wouldn't be as wealthy as they are. They are the most wealthy. There is wealth there. It's just what it's being used for. To what it is.
Amazing. Just to wrap up, maybe if you have do you have anything you want to share in terms of like your hope, your vision for social media, just on a.
No, I think we have our visions and our ideals. I suppose it's when you have people, computer scientists like yourself, speaking to people like me, or sociological. About trying to think about a future that's better. It's really interesting. You're already seeing that a gulf has been crossed. Where already. Two entirely different disciplines, views of the world are actually coming together. I think this is worth discussing. So I'm always cautiously optimistic. Not trying to be pessimistic. I mean, we're surrounded by pessimism. Cynicism is easy.
Well, on that note, let's stay cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
And best luck with Heliosphere.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.